got Doug. Got Sean Chapman. Oliver Smith.
That was a terrible tap dance.
Okay. Never mind.
First things first, you know, we are all Hellraiser fans here, right? Like, we all love this movie, we all love this franchise.
I think it's a pile of shit myself.
What?
I'm not a fan of Hellraiser.
You are not?
No. It's a god-awful movie.
Tell us why.
I may not be being entirely serious. It's called irony, which, you know. The thing I've come to learn, living amongst you wonderful people as I have for over a decade now, is that if you employ irony as an American, you always add, just kidding.
Just kidding.
JK.
Which completely defeats the object of being ironic in the first place. And the most ironic thing is that absolutely nothing in the song "Isn't It Ironic" is actually ironic. There you go.
It's a legendary movie, right? Just like our suffering, it is a legendary movie. What do you think sets Hellraiser apart from other horror films of its time?
Well, I think there's a combination of factors, and as the film ages more, you look back at the styling of it and the quality of the shooting, I think what distinguishes it is the fact that it's an art house movie as much as it's a horror. And Clive, rather like a sort of Hitchcock figure, he had designed every scene in his head before he shot it. He had worked closely with Doug in preparing the film. And there is a care, a craftsmanship that's come from thinking about the design, the script, the casting, and the people he surrounded himself with technically, who were all obviously, as we've seen, totally superb. But I think the film, when you compare it to a lot of modern horror, punches you, as it does, because it is, it's not CGI'd, it's animatronic, and it's handcrafted. And you have this wonderful thing of when you're seeing this incredible figure with the skin glistening and the veins popping and bulging and all the wonderful imagery that surrounds you in the movie, you're drawn in a way that you never are with CGI, because your brain is fogged by CGI. Your brain goes, "No, it's not happening," but it's in the story, so I have to live with it. But Hellraiser is one of those films which beautifully manages the real and the unreal, and that's very much part of Clive's genius, I think.
I always do this. I have to thank my friends, my colleagues here, Doug and Sean, who are so good at putting the answers to questions like this yeah, they're good at it. I'm afraid I fail in that area a bit.
Nonsense.
Okay, in which case,
It's going very well, Oliver. Carry on.
Ollie, what makes Hellraiser special?
I don't mean what you're saying is nonsense. What I mean is it's nonsense to suggest that you don't answer questions eloquently and uniquely.
Yes,
So anyway, I'll shut up. You carry on.
I will go back. I was reverting back to the origins of the piece. It was very. I was extremely happy to be cast in this little job. I didn't know at the time what was coming along with my colleagues as well. I can only revert to mentioning this. It was a very happy occasion. Clyde Barker, who I met on that day, turned out to be quite the sweetest man in the world. He's a clever, super chap. He set up a platform for a working atmosphere that I have experienced since, but it was particularly good news because we were off on brand new territory here for everybody. We all got to know each other, but the departments involved, the special effects boys, the prosthetics, the camera crew, whoever it was, the actors, everybody who contributed to this film, we got off to a cracking start, and I don't think we ever went over budget. In fact, they were so pleased with what we did up to a point. The money boys, that they bunged a bit more money into it and we carried on regardless. It was a happy platform to work on. It worked beautifully. We didn't quite often get to meet each other because we were filming on different days. It's only since that we've become such chums, darlings.
Sean and I have, this is only like the third or fourth convention we've done very recently, and the first time that happened, we realized it was actually the first time we'd spoken to each other. Nearly 40 years after we made the movie.
We never shared a shooting day, and people would say to me, at various times in the 40-year period, so how did you get on with Doug? I was like, we never spoke. And obviously it's been a great delight because to get to know you as we've been able to in these convention atmospheres, because we're both, all three of us are actors from England. We shouldn't be in an American-based horror movie, but somehow that happened, and we share that bonding, which is tremendous. And we all started in regional theatres in London, or in Britain rather, and we share that sort of framework of how we learn to be actors, skill sets that we gained, and then that's something again that bonds us very tightly, because that's a very particular form of training. So that's been a joy too. The only thing that is very unhappy is that Doug is a Liverpool fan. So we have to work around that, but otherwise it's all cool.
Have to work around the fact that we are the Premier League champions. And remind me what you won last season. Begins with N and ends with G with nothing in between. Moving on.
So you guys all started, and you got your training in the theater, the live theater. This microphone is terrible. That's why I'm keeping it. I'm not giving it to you guys. What is different from the process of doing a play as opposed to doing a film?
A lot.
Exactly.
While at the same time, it's all the same thing, if that makes any sense.
The big and obvious difference is rehearsal.
Usually,
It depends on the level of production.
is my microphone even on? Yes.
Going in and out too. I just
Right.
left all these batteries in.
Okay.
It just reminds
Depending on what level of production you're working at and the nature of the play, you may. Sean mentioned doing repertory theatre, which is what I was doing immediately before Hellraiser. You would have maybe 3 weeks rehearsal, which it starts with a table read through, and then for the first week or so you stumble around with the script still in your hand, and then you reach a point where the director starts saying, I don't want to see a script in a hand on Monday morning. Which is the other big thing for theatre is learning lines, and it's not like learning lines for movies. You can turn up to shoot a scene, depending on the nature of the scene, but it's possible to turn up to shoot a scene in the movies, not actually knowing it. Maybe being familiar with it, but you don't necessarily need to know it for two reasons. One is that by dint of repetition, before you actually get to turn the camera on, you'll probably know it. And the other is the possibility of... I was going to put this down.
Sounds good.
Can you all hear me? Good. Can you hear me at the back? That's another thing about
Theater voices.
theatre, which is often referred to as shouting in the evenings. So you learn line. The other thing I was going to say was that very often you'll find that on the floor, when you start to work a scene for a movie, things change, and dialogue may change, and things may happen spontaneously. It's not an approach I take. I do turn up knowing my lines and tend to get therefore annoyed when things start changing. But if you learn lines for the movies, you could give me a scene now and I could learn it well enough to know that if we shot the scene in an hour or so's time, I would know it. And if I'm not quite sure what I say next, I can always say, I'm terribly sorry, line, and you'll be given the line and go again. When you learn things from theatre, you can learn the lines in the morning. You have to come back to them in the afternoon and know that you still know them. And come back the following morning and know that you still know them. Beyond that, when you finally get it in front of an audience, you're in control as an actor. When the curtain goes up, the director has no control over what you're doing. And you start to tell the story at the start of the story, and you go through the chronological process of the story until you reach the end. When you shoot a movie, you as an actor have absolutely no control over what's going on. And even after you've given your performance, you have no control over what's going on, because that wonderful line that you think you nailed and delivered perfectly may get cut out of the scene, or you may find that it's being delivered with your back to the camera, or you may find that the scene is being deleted from the movie entirely. You have absolutely no control over that process whatsoever. The other difference is that on stage you do as I'm doing now, which is not addressing individual members of the audience, but I'm trying to make sure that everybody in the theatre can hear me, and I'm pitching my performance that way. In the cinema, the performance goes that way, because everything's channeling from you to the camera. And particularly if, Michael Caine did a brilliant masterclass on acting, which was full of obvious little points of saying what happens when the camera comes in extreme close, which is you can't move, and you can't move your eyes. I mean, if you're the camera and I'm looking there, and we're in here, if I suddenly look at you, the audience is going to think, what the fuck's going on over there? So you can't do it. You have to hold focus and concentration. You have to make sure you hit your mark and your light precisely, which in the theatre is not absolutely essential. You don't have to be in exactly the same place all the time, but that matters to know that you're going to be lit and in focus. Focus being nothing you have to worry about in the theatre. And of course, as I said, when you're shooting a movie, if you forget your line, we call it drying. I think Americans call it going up.
Yeah.
Yes. In the movies, you can say, "Oh God, I'm terribly sorry. What's the line? Thank you. I apologize. I'm sorry." And you go back and do it again. In the theatre, when that happens, there's a lot of silence. And if you're lucky, when I forget my line, Sean might know what I'm going to. He may say something like, "I suppose you're wondering where you're going to go tomorrow afternoon."
That's right.
I'll say, "Do you know what?
Yes,
It's exactly what." And on we go. And there are legendary stories of all of that.
Well, one of the ones I love about that particular kind of crisis you have in live theatre is repertory production, and you're doing an Agatha Christie play, and the villain comes on, and the leading man pulls out his pistol and doesn't go off, and he's standing there with the thing going click, 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 and a few seconds go by, and you're thinking very quickly, and he rushes up to the villain, he kicks him right in the ass, right, really hard. And of course the villain knows that's his kid, and he dies. Just drops it.
If he doesn't die,
Yeah. He kicks him hard in the arse. That's right. The villain drops to the floor, and he turns to the audience and said, "Thank God for these poison boots." In those situations, the adrenaline rush that you have can create the most genius situations and solutions. Yeah.
There are legendary stories of older actors who were starting to find it a little difficult to learn all their lines and would place their lines on pieces of paper around the set because they would know that they'd start off here. At some point they'd come up here and lean on the mantelpiece so they could put a little bit of script on the mantelpiece so they could look at the mantelpiece and that's what I'm going to say now. And then come over here to make a telephone call and they could hide. But
And then they come to the back of the chair, they sit in the chair, yeah.
but then you hear stories that after they've done that, the stagehands come on to check everything is fine on the stage prior to curtain up, and they'll go, "What the fuck is that?" So he comes on stage and goes over to the mantelpiece and one of the greatest actors who ever drew breath, Laurence Olivier, who I never saw on stage, but I had a close friend whose parents saw most of his career on stage, all of his great performances, Richard III and Othello and so forth, who insisted if you didn't see Olivier on stage, you had no idea what he was as an actor. He had terrible trouble learning his lines. He was not good at it. And there's a fantastic story of him coming unstuck. He was in a Greek tragedy. I don't remember which one, it doesn't matter. But as you know, very often in Greek tragedy, the terrible events happen, but they don't happen on stage. They happen off stage and they're reported. And this was a case in point where a messenger brings a scroll on to give to Olivier's character. And Olivier had thought, great, I don't need to learn this. I can have it on the scroll, because he would then unravel it and read the scroll. Came the night, the messenger brings the scroll on, he unrolls the scroll. The actor has picked up the wrong scroll. It's blank. And Olivier unrolled it and realized it was blank and realized he didn't know what the fuck he was supposed to be saying. Quietly rolled it back up again, handed it to the messenger and said, "You read it."
You can see, though, that following on from that very point, that there's described two very different kinds of energy that go on. And the last thing you want, really, in a filming day is lots of energy. You want to be concentrated and focused, and you want to actually bring energy down. Further down you bring it, the more enigmatic and the more interesting things become. It's the opposite to a theatrical energy. And of course, in modern theatre, if you're doing a play either on Broadway or here in London, you'll be doing 8 shows a week. You are doing Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. If you have a big part, you have to pace yourself about that experience. You have to remember you're travelling into the theatre every day, you're travelling home every day. So the whole thing becomes, it fills your world. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you think of is the play. You can't help it. And the key thing is that the more you do the play over a 6-month run, say, the more unreliable your memory becomes. Because you just, there's a part of you that just goes, really? Again? We're doing this again? You prepare, you go out, you do your warm-up, you do your vocal warm-up, whatever it is, you go out there. But there's always an element, there's always that thing of will the line come? And for the first few scenes, you're going to feel that. Then hopefully there'll be some relaxation and you go into glide mode. But that's that's a very different thing to what we were doing when you're making a movie like this. And it's a tribute to Clive's sense of what movie making was and is, that he was able to control the tensions and the qualities of interaction in the film as brilliantly as he did as a first-time director. He was very interested in theatre, and he'd worked a lot in theatre. He was very interested in how it worked. And he brought those skills. I think the best film directors are people who have been very good theatre directors, from everyone from Bergman through to Olivier and so on and so forth. They understand pacing and they understand contact and connection, and that is what makes a good movie a good movie. It's the interaction of people, not special effects, not bright lights, and whatever.
Pacing is a great point.
Yeah.
I think because movie making is a series of sprints. You spend 95% of your working day doing nothing. It's unavoidable. And you may, let's say you have a scene at the top of the day, and then there may be 3 or 4 scenes that you're not in, and then you have another scene that is going to be much later in the day. So you have a lot of time on your hands. And as Sean said, it's about being able to balance switching off. I don't need to be expending energy now, but being able, when the call comes, Doug, they want you on set now, which may be a very complicated or a very emotionally intense scene, you are going to have to be ready in your head to get on set and go from a standing start. You don't warm up into the process as you do in a play.
And the thing that's very allied to that as well is, and people don't often realise this, is you're mostly working with people you don't know. And you're doing these demanding and exposed sequences with people you've barely met. And that's very much part of the acting craft, is to be able to be fearless when you are feeling you're most frightened, which is on a big movie set with a group of people you don't know who've all been working together for 3 weeks, and you've come in to do your first day and all that stuff, and everybody's going, who's the new kid? Yeah, what have you seen him in? Is he any good? Nah. Nah, but the director fancied him, so he got the job. It's that, and those elements, those very human, unforecastable elements are all part of movie making. And as actors, I think we've all seen a movie. You see someone come into a scene, and ostensibly it's all fine. The words are coming out, they're moving around, and you're thinking, you start to shoot adrenaline because you're thinking, this guy is so uncomfortable. He's just coasting. He's just about getting through. Or an actress who's having a terrible scene, and you think, I can see that. I can smell that fear. I can just, But it's part of the process. I find, and I don't do theatre anymore of any kind. I don't do any acting anymore. But I find that the process of doing 8 shows a week was agonisingly dull, even in the best material. And I loved making movies for this very reason, that you go in on the day, you shoot quickly, hopefully, usually, and you shoot powerfully, and then you get out. There's a new day, new words, new location, and fresh energy. So yeah, go on and move on. Yeah.
I like repetition. I mean, but it depends. So, I mean, I've been in plays where after. There's always the adrenaline rush that takes you through the insanity of the technical dress rehearsal, when you see everything fall apart before your eyes, and then the dress rehearsal, and then first night, and all of that is a massive adrenaline surge. And I've been in things where after the first 2 performances I've thought, I have nothing else to find in this thing, like sometimes doing pantomime can be a bit like that. And that's when you have to find the energy in yourself as an actor to make sure that doesn't get better. Because always, no matter how bored and fed up you may be with the play that you're doing, and whether you think it's not really a very good production and the cast isn't very good, is irrelevant. When the audience comes into the theatre on this particular Tuesday night, it is the one and only time that this play will ever be performed in this way, in these moments. And you have to make it live.
And there's that wonderful thing in Hamlet, isn't there? The advice to the players. Shakespeare writes this wonderful thing of a kick up the backside to all actors. He says, there will always be in that audience, even if it's 10 people in a tiny town or whether it's a 1,600-seat theatre, there's always going to be one person, at least in that audience, who is cleverer, sharper, brighter, wittier, more with it than you. So make sure that you work for them. Make sure that every standard, every choice you make is for the highest quality, the highest level. And that way, that's been, I mean, it's wonderful advice because it's that keeps you motivated to do your best work. And it's invariably true. There's always someone out there who's seen the play 20 times in different productions and is usually an expert in the material or whatever, and you meet them after the show.
You will meet them in the bar.
You meet them in the bar, and they will tell you. Usually without any irony. That's the thing.
The instinct prevails anyway. Don't you go out and feeling that. That's not something you have to sort of whoop up in your head going out on stage. You're always going to do your instinctive best. And if you flop, crikey, that rare. We all know that one. It's rare, but it's a shock.
Productions where I've been aware that some people were, we would say in the UK, phoning it in.
Oh, yeah.
That they're doing the bare minimum to get by in a performance. And for me as an actor sitting in the audience, having paid good money for the privilege, it's very annoying when you see it. You do witness it sometimes.
You're there to serve the play, that's the key thing. And that's, as long as everybody in the company believes that, and not everybody always does, you're there to serve the material. And if you've said, yes, I'll do this play, it's been sent to you, you've read it, you think it's wonderful, or you don't. If you don't do it. But if you think it's a wonderful play, then there's a great sense of, I want to make this play as good as it can be. I mustn't get in the way. That's at least is another thing, isn't it? Don't be the thing that gets in the way of the play being good. So yeah.
Don't be the only bad person.
Yeah.
This is an unsung piece. Everybody's going to be thinking along the same lines as that.
And I would say 99% of the time, that's always true.
Yeah.
In theatre and in cinema. And it kind of wraps around to the first question. One of the key things that Clive got right was the casting. With one or two exceptions we don't need to talk about, but generally speaking, all the key parts were cast faultlessly. I don't think you could improve on Ashley, because you can't improve on what Claire did as Julie's extraordinary performance. You can't improve on Andy's contribution both as Larry and then as Frank in Larry's skin. Such a gap between those performances because Larry is such a milksop. And Andy, I've heard Andy say in Q&As that was the hard part for him. Playing Frank in Larry's skin, all the comes down and stuff, and Jesus wept. For him, that was easy. but being so restrained and so pathetic as Larry was hard work. And there were you always arrive at the beginning of making a film, and sometimes the pieces all fall into place, and sometimes they don't. And Hellraiser was an example of where they did. Robin Vigil's role in the success of the movie, who was the director of photography, cannot be underestimated. Clive had not directed a grown-up movie, if I can use that for him. There's a wonderfully apocryphal story, which I believe to be true, that Clive arrived on day one and went on to set, and he said, so who's in charge here? And there was a bit of a pause, and Selwyn Roberts, who was the first assistant director, eventually said, You are, sir. But that sense of naivety that Clive came to the movie with, while as Sean said, had it all in his head, but he didn't understand the technicalities of cameras and lenses and lighting and all of that. And what we call in England a job's worth had approached that job as director of photography. Could have seen Clive coming a mile off and thought, this is great, I can run rings round this guy morning, noon and night, and we can all have an easy ride, because he doesn't know his arse from his elbow here. Robin did exactly the opposite. Clive would describe to him how he wanted something to look, and Robin would say, I can do that. I can do that, but if I do that, we have to do this, we have to do that. There was a trade-off going on. At some point, Robin took Clive aside and taught him lenses, and I remember how that dialogue then changed on set to Clive saying, Robin, can we put a 35mm on this? And hearing Robin saying, good naturedly, why the hell did I teach this guy how to do it? Now he not only knows what he wants, he knows how to get what he wants. But the whole look of the film, an awful lot of that is down to Robin's work. I think the answer to why it survives is the mind of Clive Barker. It's the power of the ideas. I've always said the underlying story of Hellraiser, forget about the Cenobites, forget about lament configurations. That basic story of Larry and Julia, and Julia and Frank. You need to find another way for Frank to have died in the house, but that's not difficult. Frank coming back to life, the skinned man, Julia going out and bringing businessmen back and beating their brains out and feeding blood to her lover to bring him back to life, and then Frank in Larry's skin, and you need to find another way for Kirsty to save the day, but you can do that. That story is intact and it's very strong, and it's a fairly serviceable 80s slasher movie. Then Clive drops a little grain of pure Gothic horror into the middle of it, with the Cenobites. Just pop. And the whole film goes boof. And it opens up into all kinds of other directions. Little things that Clive does in the movie that I don't think many other directors would do. Skinned Frank. Putting a skinned man on screen, most of the time would be one of those.
Boogeyman.
Yeah, and for the audience to go, oh my God, it's a man with no skin on. Clive does that, and then he says, well, come and spend some time with a man with no skin.
Sorry.
Come and have a cigarette.
And hear him talk, and drink red wine, and smoke a cigarette, and be in love. And profess love to a woman. There are very, very few people who would go to that place, and you need to have a head as fucked up as Clive's to be able to do it, but also a mind as sharp and clever and witty as Clive's to make that work, to make you accept that a dead man with no skin is wandering around behaving like an ordinary human being. That's the strength of it all.
And if I may say, because it's driven by your own work in the film, the business of people, hell, devils, things like that. I was talking to someone today out there doing a signing, and we were talking about this very thing. The last thing you expect if somebody says, well, hell, does it exist, and are there devils in it? Yeah, but whoa, they are extraordinary. They're people you want to mingle with or get to know or listen to, instead of them being little creatures with forked tails and so on and so forth. They're these fascinatingly tuned in, turned on figures. And that element of the film the sexual element of the film, the BDSM imagery of the film, was not current in most ordinary media at the time. It was all underground. It didn't exist, of course.
Body piercing, body modification, not as familiar as these.
I mean, all the colouring of skin that's come since that time. I'm not saying that's down to Hellraiser, all the tattooing that goes on now. But very much the film unleashed from underneath the culture that was in Europe and here, I think, at the time. There was no internet, there was no streaming. If you were interested in this material, you could either read the Marquis de Sade or go to a grotty bookshop and buy a magazine. And what the film did was tap into a huge amount of energy that was bubbling up in the subculture in Europe and here too. And suddenly the club scene in London exploded with all the art students and all the girls from the Royal Ballet School turning up at Skin 2, the rubber club. And it was a golden era. It was wonderful. It had to be there. And it didn't actually hurt being frank in that situation.
Sean will be doing a
But I've always loved the fact that energy, that sensual energy that the film unleashed is even more obviously unleashed by the film. Now I see more clearly that it did that.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't know that was really what was happening.
So we have time for 1 or 2 audience questions. Who's got it? Raise a hand in the back.
I have the same question. Is there anything from the movie that you stole or took home, like a prop, or like anything that you still have from the Hellraiser film?
Anything from the Hellraiser films you took home?
The last time we were asked this question at a convention, we discovered that Claire had stolen her earrings.
That's right. That's right.
I think that the question was about design elements, other than something involving yourself, a design element in Hellraiser that drives the film. And Julia's earrings got a couple of mentions, and I think the question was put, whatever happened to the earrings? Claire very calmly said, "Oh, I don't know, darling, they may have fallen into my handbag." I have one lament configuration from Hellraiser 3, nothing to be excited about. It's what we call the hero box, a block of wood with bits of metal glued onto it and lacquered over the top. But I noticed that the director, the sadly late Tony Hickox, was giving these things away to various girlfriends who came to visit him on the set, of which there seemed to be a never-ending line. And I watched this and I thought, for fuck's sake! So I said to Paul Martin, our AD on Hellraiser 3, Tony's giving me all these boxes, and he said, "You want one?" I said, "Yeah." So I got that, and I kept. When we moved from Cricklewood Production Village to Pinewood to make Hellbound, it felt like moving up in the world. To me, Hellraiser was my first movie. Hellbound was my second movie. To be going through, being driven in the back of a very nice car through the gates of Pinewood on my first morning for Hellbound was I couldn't breathe moment, because this was Pinewood fucking studios that I was going into, and I'm intensely aware of everybody who's gone through there before me and everything that's been filmed in there. It was a wonderful, wonderful rush, and we had dressing rooms, which we did not have in Cricklewood Production Village, or anyway I didn't. With our names written in beautiful copper plate handwritten, and I kept that. I kept a piece of the makeup, but I didn't know how to look after it, and it decimated. So it crumbled away to dust, as we all will.
Did you take any of the set?
I've never heard that question, and I wasn't at the one where Julia had her earring moment.
I think she also didn't have her shoulder pads as well.
No, I never took anything from there, but I think Clive stole my leather jacket. Because it just wasn't there one day. It's a jacket that I had, that I owned, that we shot, where Frank comes into the first one. It was my jacket. jacket. And then we did this thunderstorm at the doorway, you know, and it's Frank, it's Uncle Frank, can I come in? Get him on the phone, get to see if he's still wearing it. And it was taken away to be dried, because it was my own jacket after the scene. And never seen again. So I hadn't actually put two and two together till you asked that question. Clive's got the jacket.
Did you take anything?
Yes, I did. I think it's a present. I was given a present. In Hellraiser 2, I played Mr. Browning in Hellraiser 2. Ken Cranham puts me on this, the blooded mattress. Oh no, it becomes blooded when he puts me on it. This loony, right? I scratched myself with this razor blade. Blood everywhere.
I think Ollie, everyone here has seen that scene.
Oh,
Nobody is ever going to forget it.
It's the modesty of me there, I'm so sorry. Okay, cut to the end of all that. As Mark was sliding across the scene to be mounted by Deborah Joel was the climax of the entire movie for me. But getting back to the dressing room at the end of a big long day, we started at the crack of dawn and finished very, very late. It was a long one. And a happy occasion for all its hard work. When I got back to my dressing room, there was a bottle of whiskey waiting for me. There was a little present, a little message that said, "Dear Ollie, sorry it's been such a long, hard day. With love, the production office." I took that home with me.
I don't know what that.
What, yeah? The whiskey.
I had my 21st makeup application during Hellraiser, counting from the start of Hellraiser, and they gave me a 21st birthday party. Birthday card, which I still have. I'd forgotten about that, but I still have that. And flowers and champagne for my 21st birthday. And I think I had my 50th birthday on Hellraiser 3, and I turned 100 on Hellraiser 5 with a cake and a telegram from the Queen.
Did you keep track till the end? How many makeup applications total? Or did you lose track after 100?
I never knew. I wasn't counting.
Yeah.
That was Inferno, so then we did Hellseeker, Deader, and Hellworld. I imagine it would be. It must have been getting close to 150 there.
All right, any more questions? Yellow shirt.
Attending these conventions, have you had the opportunity to have a fan moment like we have fan moments with you and meet somebody that you were a fan of at the conventions?
Many a time and oft. I've had moments where I have been goldfishing. Oh my God. So many. Alice Cooper. And feeling now that Alice is a mate. She's crazy. What a sweetheart. What an absolute sweetheart that man is too. It's just lovely. But lots of them. I remember walking across the tent at the Chiller Theatre and being stopped because I thought, oh my God, it's Joni from Happy Days. She's sitting right there. And I did stand in line to get Tippi Hedren's autograph. She didn't know who I was, it didn't matter. I just stood in line behind everybody else to get her autograph, which I have framed and hanging on my wall at home. But there's lots of moments like that. I remember kind of clearing things on my table at one point, and a voice said, I think I was being a bit pissed off about something. I can't remember what it was, a bit grumpy. And a voice said, I am a big admirer of your work. Who the hell is this now? So I looked up, and it was John Landis. So always be careful when when you hear people say those things. You have no idea. One of the most extraordinary moments was at Monsterpalooza, and this was Sunday again, clearing up. We signed at Monsterpalooza in like a long corridor. All the tables are there in the Pasadena Convention Center. And you can see all the way down, and I'm aware there's a bit of a kerfuffle going on all the way down here, and there seems to be a guy in black pants and a white dress shirt who's roughly at the heart of it. I didn't pay it any attention. Carried on clearing up stuff on my table, and I look up and register that here's this old guy in the black pants and the white shirt walking past my table. And so I thought, well, that's who it was. And I carried on. I thought, that must be Dick Van Dyke.
Oh.
And it was. Who would know if he's a big fan of horror? And he loves going to Monsterpalooza, but he likes to go, at the end of the day when the crowds have subsided, and he loves to go around and look at. Monsterpalooza is partly a craft show. All the top makeup artists and designers go to the show, and they'll put their work on display, and some of it is just jaw dropping. And now you would never imagine that Dick Van Dyke, a huge fan of that. Again, at Monsterpalooza, just walking around the exhibition area, and suddenly seeing a rather familiar stovepipe hat somewhere in the distance, and it was Slash making his way quietly around the room, taking in all the sights. So I've had lots and lots of them. Yes.
I follow that, and also you have a situation where when you're working as an actor, you're always meeting actors who you've admired, whether that's on the screen, on a set, or in the theatre. So multiple times. I've suddenly been doing a scene with someone I've admired for years. Yes.
It's just lovely people. I'm always talking about. I had the pleasure of working with the late great Gail Honeycutt, a beautiful woman, on an Elstree Little Joy playing a baddie. We had a lovely little two-act thing together, and that was one little moment in life. I couldn't get over that. And the other one was Morris on an episode of Doctor Who I did. Was Maurice Denham, the late great established British actor called Maurice Denham. You probably don't all know him, but he was well worth. It was a good month in the life on that job.
All right, everyone, please give it up.
Hey, Ashley, can you come up?